I'm Andrew Jenkins, and this is a short countdown timer to help the various live feeds catch up and settle down, folks. We can't wait for today's groovy show because we're going to be hanging out with Jane Vilioen, corporate psychologist. Oh, I think that deserves a oh. And our theme today is the neurology of effective and impactful communication. Wow. So, give us a quick wave, Jane. Say hello.
Hello.
And we've got Mrs. Moderator herself, Sarah Jenkins, FD of PDX Consulting. Say a quick hello, Jane. Sarah.
Good morning.
Good morning. We hope the feed's coming up. There's nothing in the feed yet, so if you're in, let us know. So we're just waiting for the feed to catch up. Well,
I think it might be a bit of an issue this morning, Andrew. It won't.
Something went wrong. Yeah.
Yes.
I think something's gone wrong, folks. Got 79 attendees and it's gone wrong. What's happened? Oh no, we're in. No, we're in. Thank you. Oh, thank God for that. We're aware. I can't get the feed, but other people are saying we're on, so that's all good to know. Thank you very much. Oh, that was a bit of a heart attack for a moment. So good morning, Ewa, and good morning, Tilly. So there we go. Hopefully we're all good. I can't see the feed at all. Morning, Stuart. Well, 108th show, folks. So with Sarah, Jane, me, Marketing CX in the background, thank heavens for that. And Healthy Minds Club, this week's sponsors. That's today's team, folks. So, wow, there we are. And I can't see the feed at all, so something's gone wrong my end. But luckily, you guys can see the feed, so that's all good. So thanks to our sponsor, Healthy Minds Club. We'll be looking at them a little bit later as well. So, boom! Oi, oi, people, and hi, gang. It's Leaders Live show time, folks. And it's just after 8:45 a.m. here in the UK. And we're never sure whether we are live, but we are right now. And spreading the love, folks. Yabba dabba do. Hope you enjoyed that morning, that groovy opener as well, gang. And this week, we're delighted that we're being powered by Healthy Minds Club, as I just mentioned, this week's sponsor. And look at who's sponsoring us each week. And please let us know if our audio is coming through okay, too. I presume it is, because no one said anything. And if you're new to Leaders Live, a warm welcome to you, folks. And we're a dynamic weekly talk show that generates business through networking, through community, through extraordinary conversations that inspire. And as I mentioned in the countdown, I'm Andrew Jenkins. I host this interactive Leaders Live show that's built an awesome community of like-minded leaders. Ooh. And so please don't be shy. We'd love you to introduce yourself and interact with the comments, chat with me and Jane and Sarah as we're going along, and questions too as we go along as well. So we've got 3 simple rules: dead easy, safe community, mutual respect, and please no selling in the room. Dead easy. And our motto is I to the power of we. And we've got smash those likes too, folks, and those thumbs up. We really appreciate that. Love that little bell. That keeps us motivated too. And now this talk show enables you to listen to great content, but there's so much more value, folks. So please subscribe to our email list, because you get leadership skills, you get teaching, you get value to equip you to lead and lead well, and you get freebies and updates. What's not to like about that, folks? And to make it real simple, we've now got a single link tree URL where you can connect us on all channels. So that'll be in the feed shortly, and it's there already, actually. Thank you, Tilly. So Sarah will pop the link in the chat now, and we'll come to Sarah in a moment. So if you put it all together, what do you got? Yep, you got it. Bibbidi, bibbidi, bobbidi, boo. You'll be singing that song for the rest of the day. Let's bring in our fantastic guest this morning. We have got Jane Vilioen, corporate psychologist. Hi, Jane.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Good morning. And our theme, Jane, is the neurochemistry of effective and impactful communication. Oh, so give us a quick summary and a big background and direction of travel, where we're heading today, Jane.
Okay, well, just to say a little bit about myself is that I work a lot with corporate businesses, with a whole range of different size teams to help them get the best from themselves and others, and usually do that through developing emotional intelligence with a real focus on the neurochemistry of building trust, building great relationships. And what I find is in my day-to-day work that actually a lot of the challenges we face in work, in communication, do come from deep within each individual. And with some focus on that, we can make a huge difference. So today I'm here to be talking about what happens in our brain when we have good communication, when communication goes wrong, and just to give our audience today an overview of a bit of an insight into their own brain and what they might be able to do differently today and in the weeks ahead that'll just give them the edge in their communication with
I
with
love
each
that,
other.
Jane. And there's a little joke, isn't there? The little cartoon that's like a guy's just had brain surgery, which is probably me, and then the surgeon comes along after the operation, holding this monkey, and says, "I found this in your brain, Andrew," because we do revert back to that monkey brain, don't we?
Except we would say, put it back in because I need that for certain things, which I will touch on as we go through this morning.
Brilliant, brilliant. So yeah, hang on to that monkey, folks. So and Jane, you've got an audience question for us as well. So kick us off with an
Certainly
audience
do.
question so we can get the interaction going.
Yeah, great. So, we all experience a mismatch of communication either on a daily or weekly basis, whether it be with our family, our colleagues, friends. And so I was just getting the audience to think this morning about when communication doesn't seem to be just flowing right and there seems to be a blockage and a barrier there. Where is it that people feel that in their physiology, in their body?
What
So where do you
sensations?
notice it?
Nice. So, where do you feel that in your body? What sensations do you have of the fallout when a communication goes wrong, says Jane. So, there's the question for you, folks. So, kick off with that one and please put your answers in the feed so we can catch up with you. And this is a time that we just, there's a slight delay in the feed. So, we're just going to introduce Mrs. Moderator. How you doing, Sarah?
I'm doing all right. I don't think the technology's doing too well this morning. There's not massives on the chat just yet, so I'm wondering if people are struggling to get in.
To get on, yeah.
I actually went onto the event itself and then went join rather than clicking on the bit that when it pops up and says live. That seemed to work better for me.
Yeah, snap. Yeah. So I don't know what's happened this morning, but there's a glitch in the matrix, as there quite often is when we go live.
There's a bit of something in there. But,
Have that effect wherever I go. Sorry.
oh, it's your fault, is it? There we go. At least it's not me today.
Yeah, someone who came online some time ago, a lady, she was brilliant, Dulcie Swanston. She said, "Oh, it's mum tech." She was talking about herself. So I just thought that was fantastic. So there we go. So so here's Jane. And just before you begin, Jane, let's just give you a round of applause. Oh, there you go. Hey. So kick us off, Jane, with a brief overview of everyday brain activity in our interactions. Jane, just give us a quick introduction to how that all works.
So I suppose just to go back to the fundamentals, we've all got a brain, believe it or not, we're using it all the time. Now, in any day interactions, especially when we're in a work environment, we hope to be using the most developed part of our brain, which is our prefrontal cortex, but let's just call it the green zone for today.
The green zone, right.
To remember. So our green zone helps us to do some strategic thinking, to be communicating in a very adult way, where we're listening to the content, where we use logic, where we respond with information. We use that green zone for data analysis. And when we're really in the flow of a task, we know that we're in our prefrontal cortex. Now that's great most of the time, except we've got other parts of the brain that are very active as well. Now the amber zone, which let's say it's more in the middle, which is our limbic system, we're moving away from that more advanced part of the brain, is more responsible for helping us make meaning of what's happening around us. So it might be that we're going about our business very nicely, we're in the green zone, and then all of a sudden we're presented with something that throws us a little bit. Yeah. And it could just be, maybe your boss says, "Can I just have a word?" Or maybe you get an email that says, "We need to have a conversation." And so what happens is our amber zone then triggers us to think, what does this mean to me? What happened last time my boss asked me to have a meeting? Or what happened last time somebody said they needed to talk about my report? It didn't go well. So we've got these memories, we've got these... basically, I'd like to describe this as a huge big room full of filing cabinet drawers, Andrew. So we go in and we've got a choice of all of these different bits of information. But what happens is we tend to open the drawers that are nearest to us, and they are the safety behaviours like you've done something wrong, they don't like you. These are the things that help us to really manage the situation. It goes to instinct, a bit like fight or flight. But the problem is when we are feeling a little bit under pressure and a little bit attacked, even if it's our own perception, we tend to go to these bits of information that says, this could go wrong.
This could
Be
go badly
ready.
wrong. Yeah.
Get ready to
Yeah.
run, get ready to fight, get ready to be defensive. It's not your fault. And so this is what's happening. We start secreting, different neurochemicals and hormones. We start getting a stress response. Our cortisol starts to spike in our body, and that's, accompanied by a bit of adrenaline. We might start noticing that we get tense and our heart rate starts to go. And of course, this is all based on perception. There's no evidence yet that there's anything wrong, but
Yeah.
we've started to move into this amber zone.
So we
Now,
start to reflect internally, Jane. Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
Now, what we don't want to happen, obviously, is for us to start moving into the red. But we'll come to that in a minute, because we all know what it's like to go
when
in
the
the
mist
red
comes
zone.
down. Yeah, then the red mist. Okay.
Yeah.
I
And then we start getting really defensive, really, resistant to whatever's going on around us. And we've all experienced that at different levels. It could be we feel a bit triggered. We might feel a little bit, I don't know, insulted. And it could just be from something somebody has said. But it's how we are making meaning of that makes the difference. And so this is where the magic comes in, because, and as I will talk about more as we go through this session, we can actually gain some control in that amber zone to decide which way we want to take the conversation. And of course, what happens is if we do go into the red, we're on the back foot, the conversation's going to go wrong, it could escalate into conflict, or that might be at one end of the extreme, or at the other end, it might just disconnect us from that person. We might feel a lack of trust with them. We might feel like we can't enter into a meaningful conversation. So there are different ends of the spectrum there, depending on how triggered we are. But yes, so we've got this green, amber, and red zone, and that's what we're really going to be thinking about today.
Brilliant. Thank you. Now, I don't know what's going on in the feed. I can't see the feed very well. Let's just, because it's just, I think something's happened to the feed this morning, but there's still lots of people on live. But Sarah, anything you want to add to that?
No, nothing's either people don't want to talk to me, or there is there is an issue this morning.
Please talk to us. Yeah.
We've got one or two comments. So good morning, Eva and Stuart, and Tilly. But I'm really not sure if there's anybody else out there, or whether they're desperately commenting, going, "I'm here," but it's just not coming up. So we're going to assume that they're all here, because I think it's fascinating. I'm really looking forward to, hearing a bit more.
Yeah, and there might be something. Oh, Graham Rose couldn't get through on LinkedIn, so Graham's come on to
I presume
YouTube.
it's on Facebook or YouTube.
YouTube, yeah.
The other option is to go to the website. It's live on the website.
Yeah, www.leaderslive.tv. Yep, there we go. Brilliant. So there we go. So there's a few people online, and Graham's found a route into YouTube, which is fantastic. Morning, Graham. So yeah, there we go. So when it all goes wrong, Jane, and you mentioned this thing about conflict, what's going on neurochemically then? So you've mentioned the different parts of the brain, what, and then that's added to presumably by a whole bunch of neurochemistry. What's going on there, Jane?
Well, obviously each one of us is our own chemical pot of different neurochemicals, because we're all functioning with different experiences, different levels of different thresholds of what is stressful or what is offensive. So, naturally some people seem really laid back and they don't become offended by things, whereas other people are a bit quicker to judge. So that comes from a whole plethora of values and beliefs about how conversations and interactions should be. So that's the first thing, is that we're all different. We're all at a different standing start. Once we are triggered, no matter who we are, once we've felt like the conversation's slipping away from us, what tends to happen is then that, as I've mentioned, that stress hormone cortisol
Cortisol.
might start to spike. Our adrenaline levels start to increase because our brain is getting ready for a fight, flight, freeze, or appease type of response.
Mm.
What happens then is our physiology changes. So when we start getting that cortisol and adrenaline spike, we might find that we lose our voice a little bit. We can't get our breath.
Mm.
So we've got something really powerful to say, but our voice doesn't sound powerful, which puts us on the back foot even more because now the other person's thinking that they're winning and, they're beating us in this conversation because I can't speak or my voice goes squeaky. And I'm sure everybody's experienced that when they think, what the heck's going on with my voice?
Yeah.
So our physiology starts to change. The heart rate goes up, our blood's pumping, fingers might go a little bit tingly.
Oh, yeah.
And what that does is as well, it gives us information back to the brain that I'm not okay,
Yeah.
which then starts this catalyst of, well, I'm not okay. So this conversation's threatening to me. And then our body responds again. And so it can be a downward spiral once we start feeling those shifts in our physiology. I mean, one of the things, is obviously to notice that because there are things we can do about it.
Yeah.
But when that's happening, it can feel like a real roller coaster.
Absolutely. And that was hence the reason why you asked us that first question, where in the body do you feel it when a conversation is starting to go wrong? And that's the most important thing that you start to notice. Maybe your fingers going tingly, maybe your heart rate's gone up, maybe you feel it. I feel a knot in my tummy quite quickly. And particularly when you mentioned earlier that, when someone comes up to you like your boss and says, I want to give you some feedback, and you immediately goes, what have I done? Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Lovely.
one of the things about noticing this in your body, and it's great just to reflect on that a little bit.
Mm.
Once we start to recognize where we notice those shifts, we can start to notice when it happens. So it gives us a clue that there's something shifting in our physiology before our brain might be
Right.
consciously recognizing it. So,
Right.
for example, if I'm in a conversation and I start noticing that knot in my stomach,
Yes.
even though I haven't noticed the conversation going wrong, it's a great signal for me to just reflect a little bit. Is this going well? What
Yeah.
else might I do here that might help? And it's about that self-awareness, about recognizing in our own bodies, because we're all different.
And that's really important, Jane, because our brains aren't good at this right now. Because in that situation where we're into amber, then our brains are already losing a lot of resources. I'm picking up from you, Jane. This is more a question, I suppose, which means now our brain is hijacked, that emotional hijack. So our brains are no good to us. But what we can do is look downwards into our body and kind of go, okay, what's happening? What am I feeling here? Because that will give me an indicator as an adult to kind of go, oh, something is happening here. Right. Okay. And maybe we can then jump to being a bit more of an adult, perhaps, if we're lucky enough to catch it. Otherwise, presumably, we just get swept along with the emotional hijack, Jane.
Or we can. And the knot in the stomach is almost like a little signal that we're about to get
Spot on. Yeah.
hijacked, but we're not quite yet.
Okay.
And so this is where the personal power comes in,
Mm.
because if we are quick to notice that, we've got options. We have to be quick, but we do have options. Once we've been officially hijacked, or
We've had it.
that monkey or chimp has been activated and starts rattling on its cage, look what they're doing to you, look what they're saying to you, they're disrespecting you. Once we've gone there, it's a bit harder to pull that round. But
Yeah.
the clues in the shifts in physiology are
Gotcha.
still in the amber area. We've still got choices. We can still bring that back. And that's really where the power lies, around noticing that it's not going according to plan. And even more so, Andrew, noticing that somebody else might be shifting into their amber zone. So we might be
Absolutely.
feeling pretty green, thanks very much.
It's noticing other people as well and having the sensory acuity to be able to, that takes skill, doesn't it? I love the
It
way you've talked about that, Jane. The cues and clues. I was just writing that down as you were speaking. Cues and clues and choices that we still have in amber, folks. And the power for us is in noticing in the moment when these things are happening, and then to do something about it to try and rescue the conversation. It's not always easy. And sometimes there's power games going. I don't know what. There's lots of things that go wrong in dynamic conversations. Right, really easy to be off-centered for both parties in a conversation to get off-centered. Right.
Yeah, and we ran that poll on LinkedIn, didn't we, in
We
the
did.
run up
Let
to
me
this
find that for you.
event?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the tech will allow you to bring that up.
Here we go. There it is.
Oh, brilliant. So we were asking everybody, what you notice about what you think contributes to conversations maybe feeling tricky. And it's not surprising that a lot of people felt like when there's a mismatch in values and styles, that can really be a significant factor. Also, this feel of loss of power. And in some ways, that still feeds into the values. It
Yes.
kind of was all encapsulated together.
Course.
But if we think about that, I mean, all of these are really valid responses because we're all different, right? We all have different triggers. But thinking about those values that we have, so we've got rules of engagement about how people should behave.
Right.
We should respect our elders. We should let other people talk. We should listen. We shouldn't. And we've got all of these rules that we've been taught, and we hold ourselves to those standards. Now, somebody else has got a different set of rules, right?
Yeah, different values. Yeah, different styles.
Doesn't mean they're wrong and we're right. It just means they're different. So if somebody else has a style that I love to debate things in a really animated and provocative way, somebody else might see that as a challenge, or as a criticism. And so where these different values and styles matter is for us to know our own and to be aware of others, that people do have different ways, but to be able to zoom out and think, what might be going on for this person right now? Why am I noticing a shift in their body language? Maybe they've folded their arms in the conversation. Maybe they're using those words like, yes, but.
Yes, but.
No, but.
Yeah. Sorry, but not sorry. All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And, one of the biggest communication faux pas that I see all the time, and I'm sure I'm guilty of it myself when I'm not fully aware. This is what we do. We say, no, I agree with you. Right. No, I agree. Well, hang on a minute. My brain's now confused.
Yeah.
You're using language that tells me you don't agree, but you say no, but then you're telling me you do agree. And so our brain has to work out, what's this person really saying?
Yeah.
And so we might be looking at their body language. We might be noticing shifts in, that trust and all of that stuff that's going on as well. And now we've got to interpret that and know our values and know their values and be thinking, well, who's in charge here and what result do I need to get? So there's a lot of variables going on for us to be aware of.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot of dynamic there.
Yes.
And I love the way you've described that. And you just talked about some of the things that we can do there. How do we leverage that then? So we're noticing, Jane, we're noticing something's going wrong. How do we leverage conversations that help us to sort of engage, build, lead to productive relationships and outcomes, even if it goes really badly wrong? Presumably there's a rescue somewhere that we can do later on, but talk to us about that, Jane.
Yeah, sure. And the best place to probably practice this is at home, because that's where we are quite triggered in different ways. Because
That's
if we can
harder.
get this right and practice it, it's a really great skill to have as a leader. And whether we lead others or we're leading ourselves as an exemplar of how we should behave. So when we start to think about this conversation's going wrong, or this person's not engaged with me, we've got choices.
Yeah.
And what I often encourage my clients to reflect on is to ask ourselves some questions, and I call these green zone questions.
Ooh, green zone questions, like that, Jane.
The reason I call them that is because once we're in the red zone, it's actually really difficult to ask ourselves a question.
It is, yeah.
Because we're not thinking straight. We don't want to ask ourselves a question. We just want to respond in whatever way our instinct.
React and respond instinctively. Yeah, gotcha.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So a green zone question helps pull ourselves out of the amber and
Okay.
back into the green. And really, it's an open style coaching question. So it can be something like, what do I want the outcome to be here? How is this going so far? What else could I be doing to make this conversation go well? And the power in that is absolutely amazing,
'Cause-
because when we're not
yeah,
consciously asking ourselves these kind of questions, we're swept away with the neurochemical response. We're just swept along with it.
I like
And
that, Jane.
ultimately,
Yeah.
unfortunately, how our brains work is we become focused on being right, winning, getting the upper hand, right? And we become so focused on that that it doesn't matter how we get there. And the most interesting thing about our human experience is even when we know we're wrong, we will still persevere. We've been
Yeah.
presented with evidence about how we're wrong, but we will still persevere because there's something in us that needs to reconcile that and be right
That
and be proved
autopilot
right.
wants to be right. We're addicted to being right, right? And our education system would say that. Yeah. We
Exactly.
and our ego then kicks in, and our fear of failure or fear of losing
All
kicks
of that.
in. All of that, right?
All of
James,
that. Thinking about politics, thinking
yeah.
about, social media. People
Mm,
have got this desire to prove themselves right, and we get that dopamine hit when we're
mm,
right about something. So even if we're playing a game of cards or Monopoly or whatever, we're programmed, aren't we, to get that hit, that
yeah,
competitive edge. And it feels good to be
yeah.
right because we get flooded with all those feel good neurochemicals. What what we can also do and what we can learn through developing our emotional intelligence and awareness of self and others is to start to recognize with those green zone questions, how else might I get a good outcome here?
Lovely.
What would a good outcome look
Look
like?
like.
Because it might not be that I need to be right. I might just need to engage this person.
Yeah.
Building trust might be the bigger outcome than
Mm,
proving I'm right and you're wrong.
yeah.
So we can be swept along in a different way if we bring it into our attention.
Got it. Yeah. And the green zone questions. So that's almost like stepping out of yourself for a moment and seeing if you've got the skill or the yeah, the wherewithal to kind of step out of yourself and watch what's going on and then ask more grown-up questions. Yeah.
Oh,
Brilliant.
exactly. And human beings are the only species that I'm aware of that have got something called metacognition.
Yeah.
We're able to ask ourselves and think about what we're thinking about.
Thinking about our
Oh,
thinking. Yeah.
yeah, we can reflect and say, what am I thinking? What does that mean to me? Where's that coming from?
Yeah.
What values are that based on that I might just need to check myself with?
Yeah.
And so we've got this huge superpower to be able to reflect. And so using it has to be exercised and practiced. But the more we do it, the more personal power we can gain. But I don't mean power over other people, Andrew.
No.
I'm talking about that
Personal power.
personal
Yeah.
leadership to
Indeed.
say, what's helpful here? What can I do here? And we've discussed this in the run up to this live about that ability to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes, using
Exactly.
empathy and
Mm,
compassion. And
yeah.
even though the conversation might be going wrong, to be able to say, hang on a minute, is
Hands up.
this going well?
Yeah.
I feel like maybe I've contributed somehow
Yeah.
to this conversation not being as I hoped.
Yeah. Is it me? Yeah. Type of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what could I do differently? How might I help here?
Brilliant.
Um,
These are the
you know,
green zone questions, folks. Jane, just for a moment, just give you a quick break. Let's just catch up with Mrs. Moderator. What's going on in the feeds, Sarah?
Well, we have actually got the feed now, which is really good.
Yeah.
Kieran makes a really good point. He said he finds the subject fascinating, especially talking to someone or a client who is under stress,
Yeah.
recognizing their signals as well and helping the situation rather than making it worse. So, not meeting fire with fire.
Yeah. And it's so easy to do that, isn't it, when we're addicted to being right, Jane? right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is like an explosion, isn't it? It's
It's
an
a landmine.
explosion of
Yeah,
neurochemicals, but we're also feeling this at a physiological level, and
yeah,
we're driven by emotion. And remember, when our green zone switches off, logic has now gone out of the window. So it's all about how we feel and where we feel it. It's really hard to bring it back. So I love that comment about helping a client to move back into the green zone by asking them questions like, well, what would have been a better outcome? What else could you have done to have helped that conversation go better? And what have you learned about yourself in that conversation?
And I love the way you've just said that and reminding us how easy it is that our monkey brains take over the monkey again, where we remember logic has just flown out the window, and now we're at the mercy of possibly quite extreme emotions. Sarah, what else is going on?
Yeah, Graham's got a question. What is your suggestion from a neuroscientific view when facing a conflict?
Great question,
Great
Graham.
question.
I mean, really, lots of conflict creeps up on us, doesn't it? And
It
it's
does.
just there,
Yeah.
and we haven't had time to prepare.
Mm.
So I guess again,
And we can
thinking
get
about
scared of it.
yeah,
Yeah,
how
sorry.
we become more self-aware to notice it as soon as possible. Where the skill then comes in would be to notice that there is a conflict looming and to be able to say, I'm noticing to the other person, I'm noticing that there's a bit of conflict here.
Yeah.
How do we need to handle this to get a good result for both of us? What do we need from this conversation? That would be the ideal. If we've already slipped down and we're already in it, it could be then about, as soon as we do notice, being that bigger person, being that leader to say, oh, I'm noticing this isn't going well. Could we just zoom out a sec here?
Yeah.
Could we just take a pause?
That's about taking responsibility and seeing the bigger picture and it takes courage to do that, perhaps, Jane. I'm just thinking about myself in that situation. It sometimes takes a lot of courage. You might be noticing it, but do you feel that you've got a voice to do that? And that's what you're encouraging us to do, and to notice it. And that's what leadership is about, is doing that, right?
Well, it is. And,
Yeah.
Graham's question is asking from a neuroscientific point of view. So
Yeah.
what we're thinking about here is we need to now down-regulate our cortisol level and
Yeah.
also the other person. So we know that by improving things like our oxytocin, that's the connecting hormone, that neurotransmitter, that we can encourage building trust. So the first thing to do would be to ask the other person a question that would help bring them back into trust. Like, what do you think?
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying helpful? What do you need from me right now? So what we do is we help them down regulate the cortisol by showing them that they can trust us, that we're listening, that it's not just about us. We're not striving to be right or prove them wrong,
Yeah.
but we're actually really in this with them. We want to collaborate with them to get a great outcome. And they will only know that by us being a good leader to say, what else could I do here?
Yes, something's up here. I love that, Jane. Sarah, what else is there other things in the feed at the moment?
Yeah, Maria Jeffers
Oh, hello, Maria.
saying it's so easy to go overly defensive or start to people please.
Yeah.
Your adult parent-child ego states are at play during conflict.
Absolutely. Well, whether we call it a monkey, a chimpanzee, or
Wrong
a
one.
child
There it is.
ego state, what happens is, we're triggered at one of our values is challenged.
Yeah.
It's a hot button. So it's great to find out what our hot buttons are. And once we're challenged, we go, I'm not playing. This
Taking
is
my
not
ball
fair.
home. Yeah.
Who do you think you are? And it might not be that we're saying that, but this is what our
Our
brain
brains are
is doing.
saying, okay, gotcha.
So yeah, we want to move out of that child ego state by asking ourselves again, is this going to get me the result I was looking for? What else can I do? And a green zone question is also an adult question, an adult ego state question. How can I help you? What can I do differently?
I really like that. And I think we can all learn something from that, I'm putting my hand up here and saying I can certainly learn some stuff from this. In terms of, strategies and techniques, Jane, we've talked about what goes wrong, and you've already started to sort of the green questions, the coaching questions, and things like that. And that brilliant. What other strategies and techniques, or even green questions, that can help us to recover from, potentially rescue even a conversation that's just gone completely wrong?
Yeah. Well, one of the things is to recognize that we can't change the other person's behavior. We've only
Yeah.
got control over ourselves in that
Right.
scenario.
Good point. Yeah.
We can encourage and we can pull by using those nice
Mm.
prefrontal cortex or green zone or coaching questions. We can really help. But I mean, I think I saw a question flash up about once we're triggered, how do we pull that back? And I think
Oh,
it is.
where's that? Who said that? Let
Oh,
me find
I'm not
that.
sure whose name it was. Sorry, I just saw something about
Oh,
once we're
that's really
triggered.
good. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, go for it, Jane, and,
Yeah.
and pick,
And
pick that up.
so, it is about taking a deep breath. I mean,
Mm.
it sounds so basic, but our breath, oxygen coming into our body and focusing on our breath, just to give ourselves that control back, to remember that we don't have to respond immediately. We can take our time. And one of the nice techniques that I always encourage people to use is don't respond until you're ready. Just
Gotcha.
take a
Take time.
millisecond,
Mm.
right? Because if you respond like that, that's going to come from your chimp, your
Of
monkey,
your
your
monkey's brain.
child.
Yeah. Yeah. Indeed.
Just to take a moment, take a deep breath, and to give yourself a few positive affirmations in that millisecond. I can do this. I'm okay. This is okay. This can be rectified. And
Absolutely.
reminding yourself of those truths, because different truths can exist simultaneously. Yes, it's going wrong. Yes, they might be getting angry with you. Yes, there might be conflict. They're all true. But it's also true that you are resourceful, that you are intelligent, that you're emotionally intelligent, that you've got tools to help you. They are both true. So just take a moment to remind yourself of the other truths as well. And that gives us that personal power just to ask a great question.
I love that. That personal power to ask a question. That's about standing back and seeing it happen. And, something you mentioned earlier that's triggered a thought in me, Jane, that there's an olive branch somewhere in this, that it's about being graceful, perhaps, to offer an olive branch,
Yeah,
which
great,
is hard to
Andrew.
do in the moment, but that olive branch could be really powerful, right?
It really can. And
Mm.
we've mentioned that phrase being addicted to being right. And
Yeah,
the reason we have that is because really the dopamine hit, that's what we're
of course.
addicted to. It's the dopamine
Ah,
bit. Our brains want it. And what an emotionally intelligent leader can develop in themselves is a new addiction, an addiction to doing the right thing rather than being right.
oh, not being right, but doing the right thing.
Doing the right
Oh,
thing, we
yeah.
can learn how to get the same flood of
Mm.
dopamine by doing the right thing, and it becomes that we strive for that instead. As soon as we see conflict, we're going, right, how can I change, how can I flex, how can I help this person? And that in itself becomes the goal of how can I show myself how emotionally intelligent I am here and get this dopamine hit from being a really great moderator or mediator,
Yeah.
right?
Talking about a really great moderator, Sarah has got a brilliant phrase for this, Sarah, that when we're in conflict, and you mentioned earlier, Jane, that one of the great ways of practicing this is do it home, in a family situation, because that's where we get quite a lot of those kind of in the moment things, right? Where we're easily triggered because we feel safe with one another. Sarah, you've got this brilliant phrase that kind of, which disarms me completely, is that when I'm getting antsy, it's always my fault, right? So that's we'll just get that one out there. And Sarah will say really magnanimously and gracefully, "Look, I'm really sorry that we're having conflict here." So she's not saying I'm sorry for herself. She's not apologizing for herself.
I'm never wrong.
Well, that's
That
true,
goes
but
without
she says
saying,
it.
Sarah, but of course.
but,
Absolutely.
but she says it in a way that's very beautiful. I'm really sorry that we're in conflict or we're having a disagreement here. So no one's at fault. And that is so disarming, Jane, and and it just makes me come to the table and kind of go, and yeah. And then all the ego goes, doesn't it?
Yeah. And just that
Mm,
phrase. I'm so sorry. And we can,
Yeah.
we in a work context, we might even say, oh, I'm just noticing. Like,
Yeah.
just be honest about what you're noticing, because that
Yeah.
builds trust. If you can show a bit of vulnerability, it
Mm.
disarms the other person, because
Yeah.
straight away their chimp starts to downregulate. Oh, they're not a threat. They're submissive. Now I can go back to my human self, because now I don't have to be a chimp, and jungle rules no
Yeah.
longer apply
Top
here.
dog and
This
all that.
person is submissive.
Gotcha.
And we can say things like, I'm not I'm not really happy about how this is going, and I'm so sorry that
Mm.
something I might have said has made this worse.
Yeah.
Could
Was
we
it
just
me?
can we have time out? Could we
Mm.
come back to this? And like you say about doing this at home, Andrew,
Mm.
I had to learn this with my children very early on, about saying, this is not a good conversation, is it? Can we just have a few minutes and come back to it?
Can we start again? Perhaps
Can we
even.
start again?
Yeah, I love
And
that phrase. Sorry, I was wrong. Can we start again? Or apologies that we're at loggerheads.
I
Could we
haven't
start
I
again?
haven't covered myself in glory here, and I'm
No.
noticing that if we continue,
Mm.
you're not going to get the best out of me. I need 5 minutes. And what you've done there is you've pointed no blame at the other
Yeah.
person. And usually when we ask somebody to help us, they will.
Yeah. Can you give me another chance? What am I missing? Is one of my favorites. So, when we're in conflict and it's like, oh God, where did that happen? It might be, right, what am I missing here? What did I do? Was there something? Was it me? What was it? And what am I missing? And quite often, that what am I missing then enables you to find it, because your brain's not looking for justification of you being right. It's going, what am I missing here? What's the missing piece? Yeah.
How can I fix it? How can I get my dopamine hit from fixing
Yeah.
it?
Absolutely.
Right?
And you're
And
suggesting the dopamine hit comes from fixing it, right? Not from being right.
well,
Gotcha.
we can train ourselves to get it from however
Yeah.
we want, because that's what a new habit is. When we
Ah.
when we're consistent and create a new habit,
Mm,
so for example, going to the gym and
mm.
committing to ourselves, or exercise, or going for a walk, or whatever it is, when we
Take
express
time
to
out.
ourselves what we want to achieve, and then we
Mm.
achieve it, that's when we get our
Dopamine
reward.
hit. Yeah, got
Yeah,
it.
so we choose better habits, we choose better approaches. And this is all about learning these things, and we can learn it. And it's
Mm.
about developing that deep emotional intelligence through learning more about ourselves, our values, our triggers, um, self awareness, awareness of others, but also very much feeding into how much we value ourselves and others. That's a whole different conversation, Andrew, because um, our self worth plays a huge part
Of
in
course.
how we're triggered. Those values and beliefs.
Well, it's all
Yeah,
about
I mean,
ego
we can
again, isn't
develop
it?
that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, and um, that's so much in what you've just said there. Let's just give you a break for a minute. Sarah, what's going on in the feed? Let's just catch up with you for a minute.
Just so Graham says, often read that neurons that fire together wire together. Does this impact our communication style in the moment?
Absolutely. So we've got a wonderful thing called a mirror neuron, right? So
Oh, mirror neurons.
so that's where maybe empathy and compassion come in. When we feel that emotional shift in our body when we're listening to somebody else telling us about a problem or a challenge or whatever, that's because our mirror neurons are firing. Okay, so they are what help us to fuse together, and from a evolutionary perspective, that's what help us to bond with a mate or a tribe, or whatever that might be.
That's
we
interesting.
can we can really use our mirror neurons to make sure that whatever we see in front of us, a little bit like when we mirror somebody's body language to help them feel the rapport, so we can be intentional, not manipulative, but intentional about how we engage somebody else with our body language, and mirror them so that they feel in rapport with us. But then we can lead on the neurons as well. So if we are feeling in a green zone, we encourage the other person's mirror neurons to help them shift back into the green zone by asking them those great questions. What do you need from me right now? How can I help? What
I
would be a great outcome to this conversation? How
love
will you
that.
know this has been useful? Right? So we we use those questions.
That's beautiful, Jen. Just as you were talking there, there's something that triggered a thought in me is, what you're doing there with the mirror neurons. First of all, you're just matching, then you're pacing with them, and was what you just said. And then you've got the ability to lead with a green question. So matching, pacing, leading. So, match, pace, lead.
Yeah. And of course, all of the psychology techniques that we use in our everyday, in our business, they're all, all psychology goes back to brain chemistry. Okay, so when we learn that we can influence, but it's only been really the last kind of 15 to 20 years that psychologists have really been able to understand what's happening at a neurochemical level when people are experiencing emotion. And that's through the use of fMRI scans, where we can probe people up and then we can expose them to different stimuli. So it might be a tragic event that they're viewing, or it could be a rejection, or it could be all sorts of different scenarios. And then we can look at which parts of the brain are activated, which bits are lighting up. So we know from research which bits are typical for different emotion. But we can also measure hormone levels, swab people, find out, take blood tests. It's amazing what we can find out about how people are responding and the differences as well between people. So we've got all of this information now, which we didn't have 50 years ago, 30 years ago, that's informing our knowledge around how we can become even better at stimulating the right responses in our...
Even more betterer. I love that.
Even more betterer, at doing what we do.
Yeah, I love that. And wouldn't it be nice if those bits in our brain were lit up in red, amber, green? It'd be so helpful, wouldn't it?
Well, isn't it interesting? Because now with AI development,
we can do that, right?
How long will it be before we can get a little screen here that's probing into our brain that just tells the other person, you're triggering my amber zone here, ask me a better question. Why not?
You get this little response saying, love me, or get lost.
Why not? It might be that this is nearer than we think, because we can probe it, we can test the different neurochemical responses. Hey, who knows? Maybe that's a good idea. If there's anybody, any innovators watching, any creators, maybe that's something to create.
That's it. Wonderful. I love that, Jane. What a great way of just sort of concluding on that, because we're just at that point where we're just at a turning point right now in terms of timing. And I want to go on to your sort of calls to action and a little bit more about you in a moment. Sarah, what's going on in the feed?
Eva says, Jane, you've now scientifically explained why we can achieve more with honey than with vinegar. Thank you.
Exactly.
Isn't that so beautifully said, Eva? That whole thing about, I've heard this before, and it's a beautiful phrase, Eva, say it with honey because it's so much better than saying it with vinegar. That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Here we go. Question from Graham. When dating, is it a case that we only show our green zones?
Oh, well, Graham, you're on it.
Now then, no. Because when we want to build trust with someone, we want to be known, don't we? We want to share what matters to us and what potentially could trigger us. But we can be very intentional about that, Graham. So what we would do is we would ask the other person questions about what's important to you, what are deal breakers for you. If I was a kind of person who you'd want to be with, what would I never do? So we could really find out what their values are to make sure that we don't trigger them.
So we're exchanging, our personalities a little bit and getting to know each other. Love that question though. Graham, you're on it this morning. Absolutely fantastic. And Jane, just a little bit about yourself. Here's Jane's website here, Jane V, which I think is janev.com, all one word, .com. And this is Jane's website here. So if you want to find out some more about strategies on all of these kind of things, or you need some help in this area, then please contact Jane through her website here.
Just to say, Andrew, it's VEE. So when I went to get that website, there was already a Jane V. How rude.
How rude.
It's VEE.
.com. Thank you. Thank you. It'll be in the
Yeah,
feed in a moment. So thank you for that. Now, Jane, you've also got something coming up as well on the 10th of October. Let me just bring this up for you. What's going on here, Jane? This is an event that you've got, half a day event. Tell us about this,
it
Jane.
is. So I run these workshops quarterly. So this is a develop an emotional intelligence workshop where people who come along get an in-depth psychometric emotional intelligence
Ooh.
profile. So when you come along, you get a kind of 36-page report all
Wow.
about you, and it shines a torch into the corners of your subconscious to just
Hey.
help you understand where you're utilizing your strengths, but also maybe where you're overplaying them and where your development areas are. And we deep dive into a whole range of how emotional intelligence can be leveraged, how to use it in the workplace, how to get better at it, but ultimately how to learn more about ourselves, because that I keep talking about personal power. It's one of my biggest gifts to people when they come for coaching, is that they leave that coaching assignment with an absolute hugely increased sense of personal control, consistency, commitment, and leadership. So, you get that from the workshop, or for people who might prefer to do that in a one-to-one, you can pop onto the website janev.com and have a look there. Book a call if you want to talk to me about it. All the links are on the website. But I'd really love to see some of you at the workshop. It's people say when they've finished it, it's the best thing they've done for their personal development. It makes such a difference to their careers, to their life at home, to their relationships. And I would say that, but it is awesome.
It is awesome. I love that. There's no charge for awesomeness here, Jane. So well said. Hopefully that will feed into the link if Tilly can do that for us if she's still on. Otherwise, we'll pop it in later. So the feed will be there for this half-day event on the 10th of October. So be
It's
there
one of
or
the
be
best
square.
investments people can make in themselves. And if anybody, wanted to do this through their work, I'm really happy to help them to do that through their work. If work have got
Nice.
a learning and development budget that they want to access, just
Well
send me an
said.
email or whatever, chat to me about that. We can work that out, because,
Well
it
said.
is a really great a piece of CPD as well.
Well said. And talking about corporate budgets and things like that, for me, I'd like to just say, look, actually contact me if you want to have anything with your team in these sort of things. I've got a fresh approach to team away days and strategic action planning, and I call it the Big Think, folks. And it's a lovely facilitation event. So if you're looking for a team day, on any of these kind of subjects as well. And, I could even bring Jane along to something like that as well. And we could do a double act, perhaps, Jane.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Wouldn't that? And look, there's the monkey, by the way. Look, there's my monkey brain just sitting there. So that's a big think. It's a team building approach and, to help you to work better as a team. That's kind of the stuff that I do. And just say a great thank you for you, Jane, for enlightening us today with an extraordinary and playful conversation, just like we love to have on Leaders Live. And we've loved having you on the show, Jo and
It's been
Jane.
a pleasure. Thank you so much for asking me.
Yeah, very well.
I've enjoyed
We're going to do
it.
a round two, and we're going to do that on boundaries, I think, is what we were talking about earlier. So and if Jane is willing to do that, we're going to talk about boundaries maybe in October. So this show will be on podcast 2 shortly, folks, and we'll put the link in the comments too. Sorry that some of you haven't been able to get on today. I mean, for those of you who are listening who couldn't get on won't hear that apology, but we'll somehow I'll probably put the YouTube link onto LinkedIn for those that missed it, so we can catch it on the replay. And before we get on to next week, I just want to say a quick reminder that Leaders Live is a free show to all leaders, directors, managers, and entrepreneurs who are interested in business growth through infotainment and enjoy taking part and interacting in these extraordinary conversations, just like we've had today. And Eva says around 2, please. And just a quick nod to our sponsors and to Kathy Heath, who is our sponsor today. Here's her show reel for you.
I'm Kathy Heath, CEO and co-founder of the Healthy Minds Club. We are a multi-award-winning well-tech business offering personalised, proactive and preventative wellbeing solutions in the form of a gift card and membership. We connect our users with qualified, insured, vetted wellbeing experts, products and services to prevent issues and empower positive mental and financial wellbeing. I'm absolutely delighted to be sponsoring Leaders Live and Andrew.
There we go. Brilliant. Thank you, Kathy Heath there. And yeah, brilliant. So that's that. And yeah, thanks, Kathy, for being our sponsors this week. Now, Sarah, what's going on in the, you were just going to do a little call to action for Leaders Live.
Yeah, just a reminder, really, that if you've enjoyed listening to what we've talked about today, tell all your friends, let's get it out there. Let's expand. If you've got topics that you think, actually, I really wish they would talk about whatever, let us know. Drop us a line, engage with us. Don't forget to subscribe because you get such more benefit.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. And the goose for next week, folks. So I haven't quite worked all the details of this out yet, but that's next Tuesday. I don't know what next Tuesday is. What date is the next Tuesday? I haven't figured that out. 26th. Thank you, Jane, being on the ball there. 26th September at 08:45 a.m. We'll be hanging out with our very own Jonas Grau Thompson. And he's going to be talking about assistive technology and partnerships specialist at UNICEF, because he's now working with UNICEF. And I think that'll be really interesting, how to build some game-changing partnerships through technology and assistive technology for people that need it, that have got difficulties, physical difficulties or whatever, and how technology can help us to leverage, any of those sort of difficulties that we have and disabilities. So, and so much more he'll be talking about. We think you're going to love it, and we can't wait. So be there or be square. And we're going to rock out very shortly to our closer here. And just before we do, let's just bring our guests back on again. And Sarah, anything else in the feed that we just want to finish with, Sarah?
No, I think we're all good. Lots of enjoyment. It's been a really interesting topic of conversation. We definitely need a round two.
We do, indeed.
I think also it would be really interesting to talk about, you were saying how self-worth has a massive impact on all of this. So I think that would be a really interesting topic as well. So there may be a round three as well.
Round three as well, self-worth as well. So there you go, folks. Brilliant. Yeah, thank you, Jane. And thank you to you. Absolutely brilliant. So we're going to rock out to our closer. We're going to wave goodbye to you through this. Thank you very much for attending, and we'll see you again very soon. So see you next week, folks. Thank you very much. We'll just wave goodbye to you from here on our groovy show. See you next week. For another fab show. We can't wait. Another awesome show. There we go. Thank you very much. See you again next week, folks. Cheers for now. Boom. There we go. And we'll just